to see you again.
Thank you, Shep, for having me on. And this is such an important time for us to be solemn and remember this. This is not a celebration.
No.
This is a memorial service.
It's the worst day of the year. And I remember I watched a lot of these documentaries, and I now know that there was more chaos than we realized, and you guys knew less than we did in the early going.
The early going, truly, well, first of all, the president was told that it appears a small twin-engine prop plane crashed into one of the towers at the World Trade Center. So that was not true. It was a commercial jetliner. And then, you know, we wondered if there were other attacks coming. And we could hear that when we got all the way to Nebraska, and we were in a bunker deep underground and at the Strategic Air Command, you could hear the fog of war as people said, there's a plane coming in from Madrid and it's not identifying itself. Oh, it was coming from Madrid, Ohio, and it's not one of ours.
And Angel is next.
Angel, Air Force One. That's the code name of Air Force One. And also, the president really wanted to go back to Washington, D.C., and he was pretty adamant to me that that's where he wanted to go. And I kept saying, I understand that. I just don't think you want to make that decision right now.
Andy, I heard the words were a little harsher than that from
They
43.
got harsher every time he asked. I was consistent, and I tried to be cool, calm, and collected, and reflecting the views of the pilot of Air Force One and also the views of the Secret Service, who actually have superpowers to protect the president if they think he's in danger.
When you finally got back to the White House, we were approaching nighttime, and he addressed the nation and a famous line that changed things. Here it is.
We will make no distinction between the terrorists who committed these acts and those who harbor them.
Changed the course of history. Tell me about the discussions that preceded that utterance.
Well, we arrived back. First of all, at the school, he said there would be a consequence. So when he spoke to the parents and the community leaders, after he was in the classroom with the second graders, just before he left to get on Air Force One, he said, this will not stand. Then he called, one thing that a lot of people don't realize, he called President Putin, one of the first calls he made from Air Force One, and he said, don't think we're going to war with you. I don't want you doing anything stupid over there. We're going to be transparent. This is a problem for you as well. We can't allow terrorism to stand, so he started that. But then he was very deliberate and say, we are going to get to the bottom of all of this, and we were paranoid about another attack, and he was not going to let terrorism stand, and he said, we're not going to be alone. We're going to encourage everybody in the world to be with us. So the speech that he gave, which was a short address at 8:30 at night on September 11th on Eastern Time, he said, you're basically either with us or against us. If you harbor terrorists, you're going to be just as guilty as the terrorists. And he said that to every world leader. Muammar Gaddafi in Liberia steps up and says, in Libya, says, I'm with you. I am with you. Don't blame me anymore. And that was a good deal. I'm sure General Musharraf in Pakistan is going, oh, I want to be with you and I want to be against you. Well, you can't straddle the fence. You're either with us or against us. But Saddam Hussein said, I'm offering a $2,000 reward for every family of a suicide bomber.
Is that the reason we started that war?
Absolutely not. The president did not want to go to war in Iraq. We went to war in Iraq.
It wasn't about his daddy, as the criticism has been leveled.
It was not about his daddy at all. In fact, it was more about the UN passed 16 resolutions calling for Saddam Hussein to do things. And many of them came from the agreement reached when the first Gulf War ended. Yeah, and he didn't keep any of those commitments.
Certainly not worth relitigating that now. But the Afghanistan war, I've heard few people who said we never should have ended the Afghanistan war. The complaints were about the way we got out. But my concern as a journalist was now we know the last administration, one before that, and Bush 43's administration, they all lied to us about that war along the way. What are your biggest regrets about that war and what we were told that wasn't true?
The war in Afghanistan?
The war in Afghanistan.
Well, I'm not sure that, first of all, the mission was to make sure that Afghanistan didn't harbor terrorists.
But the mission moved and changed, and we surged, and we...
Well, the men and women that went over there were sent over with the mission to make sure nobody would start organizing a plot against America there or executed from Afghanistan. And they kept that mission. All of the men and women who went over there and the sacrifices were made. They accomplished the mission the president sent them on. He also wanted to invite them to have freedom. And he gave them freedom, empowered women. They went to school, they worked in government, they started jobs.
Of course, we tried to set up a government
We
that
tried to
Afghans
set up
were
a
never
government,
gonna.
and that failed. And we have to learn how to do better at creating a climate for democracy. And one thing we don't do well, we don't understand the nature of tribalism around the world, and we're starting to fail at understanding the nature of tribalism in the United States.
I was going to say, if there's any place that's tribal, right now it's this one. Andy Card, always. Thank you.
Thank you.
Shepard Smith here. Thanks for watching CNBC on YouTube.